One of the best Clone Hero players in the world asked me how to do something, albeit mildly, pertaining to Clone Hero. Yeah, I should probably explain myself, shouldn't I? The way OBS works on a fundamental level is by simply throwing together a ton of different sources that the user specifies and compiling it into a single scene that is either shipped off to be saved to your computer in the form of a video file, or then shipped off to Twitch or YouTube or what have you as a live stream. Take, for example, a basic OBS setup you would have for Clone Hero picture-in-picture. You have three sources: the game itself via game capture, a video capture device, so your webcam showing you playing the game, and your microphone listening to you still playing the game. All three of these sources are depicting the same thing, but at slightly different times. In my experience and in my testing, your webcam is going to showcase a given event about 5 frames after your audio, which is roughly under 1/10 of a second. But when you put it that way, it's not really the end of the world. Most viewers probably aren't going to notice or care. That being said, this could still be a really nice thing to have, especially if you're doing something that's time sensitive. So like rhythm gaming, anything like super competitive. And it can really help if you want to like take a replay or look at your VOD later, so you can actually see everything proper per se. Thankfully, you can do some tweaking in OBS in order to have all of your sources synced up exactly. This can be done usually by using render delay filter for your video sources, so like your game and webcam, but also right-clicking on the audio mixer in OBS, selecting the advanced audio properties, and then adding a delay to your audio sources there. We're going to be touching your mic primarily. So that begs the question, how do you actually sync up all of your sources, and how do you verify that you've done so properly? The process and my method specifically is what I'm going to be sharing with you today. So you need two things for this. First, you need your OBS set up exactly the way you'd like it, but you also need a multi-track video editor. If you haven't done any video editing in the past, or if you're not familiar with any video editing software, don't worry, we're not doing anything super crazy. We're just dragging your video onto it, so that way you can see both the video and the waveform that represents the video's audio, and the ability to go frame by frame. All the magic that we're doing is in OBS. First, we need a reference point. Boot up Clone Hero and make a test recording of you hitting your frets on your guitar while you're in-game. I like to hold the neck right up to my camera in a way so that I know the exact moment I hit the fret. Also, you probably want to make sure the audio of you hitting the fret is picked up, so if you have any filters such as a noise gate or audio suppression, you might want to disable those for now. You can enable them when we're done. So now that we have our test recording, go ahead and put it into the video editor of your choice, in which I have already taken the liberty of doing so. What we have here on the bottom of the screen is the video on the multi-track. What we really want to pay attention to, though, is the waveform in blue, where you see these small peaks here are representing me hitting the frets, just smacking the frets. What I like to do is to start a bit before that and just keep going frame by frame until you start to see each different part of the scene, so the game capture, webcam, and whatnot, when you hitting the fret is represented effectively. So just going to keep going frame by frame, and here we go. This is the frame where the game is showcasing that the fret has been pressed. Go another frame, nothing happens. Oh, oops. Go another frame, we are past the audio peak, which means that the audio is registering that we smacked the fret. And we go one more frame, and now the webcam is showing that my fingers are now pressing down on the frets. Relative to game capture, audio is 2 frames behind, and the webcam is 3 frames behind. Go and get your results and go ahead and write those down. We're going to be needing those in a bit. And by a bit, I mean right now. There is one last thing we need to consider, though, before we plug these in, and that's frame time. The render delay filter doesn't accept values in frames, but rather in milliseconds. How many milliseconds are in each frame will depend on your frame rate. Most of you are probably going to be at 60 frames per second, which translates to 16.6 milliseconds, so just start with 16. If you have to stream at 30 due to internet or hardware limitations, that frame time actually doubles to 33.3 milliseconds, or just 33. Anything else, just take 1000 and divide it by your frame rate and then round down to the nearest integer if you have to. Also, we're going to be delaying your sources to this lowest one. This is a render delay, so you need to reformat your data in order to help reflect that. In my case, instead of thinking of my webcam being 3 frames behind my game capture, it's now my game capture being 3 frames ahead of my webcam and needs to be delayed as such. In my case, at 60 FPS, 3 frames is 50 milliseconds, so I would go to my game capture, right-click to filters, add a render delay filter, and put in 50 into the value field. After that, you're done. You want to rinse and repeat with the rest of your sources. Once you're done with that, go ahead and make another recording with your new settings of you hitting your frets in game, and then put it back into your video editor to see how everything lines up. At this point, it's a process of repeating these steps of calculating your delay, tweaking the values, and just rinse and repeat until everything is lined up the way you want it. One thing I will say is sometimes the delay will fluctuate in a single record. So let's say you have a test recording and this recording is of you hitting the fret multiple times, and you try to calculate the delay between each smack of the frets. So if in one smack your game capture is 1 frame ahead, but in another smack in the same recording your game capture is 2 frames ahead, then you might just want to go to your render delay and just increase it by 1 millisecond. It somehow makes it a bit more consistent. It probably has something to do with that decimal thing we were talking about earlier, but your mileage may vary, but just try it out and see what happens. So there you have it. That is how you can properly calibrate and sync up your entire OBS scene, so you have a perfectly in sync stream or file. At least in theory, because streaming it can sometimes cause But either way, I hope you learned something new or found this interesting. I hope you would have considered you stuck around to the end. I would like to hear your feedback in the comments below. I'm not saying that just for the sake of like engagement and the algorithm and all that. I'm just genuinely curious because this is the first time I've sat down and edited a tutorial or guide like this. So I'd really appreciate to hear feedback from you guys. But yeah, that is all I have for you today. Have a day. Thank you.